Hello, and welcome to a history of cool between the dates of April 6, 1993 and December 28th, 2016. Who is Sonic? I am Sonic. Everyone knows who Sonic is, but my real name is Ogilvy Maurice Hedgehog, and I go real fast. Um, but also, when this thing is around, I can turn into a werehog. Anyways, what am I talking about? I'm not talking about the video games I'm in, of which, there are many. There are so many video games. There are quite a multitude of video games. So many, it's hard to even count. In fact, the list is almost exhaustive. It's never ending. It truly is a potpourri of video game types that truly never stop. They've thought of everything, truly everything, including TV shows. There's so many TV shows. But no, we are talking about the Archie comic book series, Sonic the Hedgehog, not to be confused with the British children's comic by Fleetway Editions called Sonic the Comic. All you need to know, nobody cares. So, what is Sonic the Archie comic? It is freaking amazing. Released April 6th, 1993, a fun romp by Sega to promote their flagship series of video games starring everyone's favorite Blue Blur. That's me. The epitome of cool started when Michael Gallagher decided that my story needed to be brought to the rest of the world. This, my true story of my life on the planet Mobius, which you may say looks like Earth. But I don't know what you're talking about. Mobius doesn't look anything like Earth. Here's a description of the first issue. When one of Robotnik's SWAT bots develops a mechanical plant called Krudzu, a malevolent robot-like plant with an affinity to water, he decides to modify a burrow bot to plant its seeds within the Great Forest. Meanwhile, in Knothole, Antoine, depressed because Sally only pays attention to Sonic, decides to get her a bouquet of flowers. Unfortunately, he also ends up getting as well. Not sure what that means grammatically, but can Sonic get there in time to save him and the forest as well? For many of these first issues, the plot did not carry over comic to comic, and they were mostly reliant on slapstick. During year 3, continuity started happening. Mecha Sonic got introduced as part of a special, and then came issue 50. In this issue, the series introduced consequences that would affect the series going forward. Though more on that later. Well, the comic changed tones rather quickly. It changed to an allegory for the biblical Israelites finding their way back home by trekking through a desert metropolis for years, but none of that really matters without characters. And let's talk about them. There are a lot of characters, and I will not even be able to mention all of them. There's so many of them. Let's start talking about my freedom fighters. Princess Sally Alicia Acorn, who is the daughter of the King Maximilian Acorn, who may or may not, due to a betrayal by a certain bad man, exists in a crystallized prison universe that also exists in a vacuum, and thus there's no concept of sound. It's called the Zone of Silence. You get it because it's silent there and there's no sound. Anyways, don't worry, he's free now and was cured from a brainwashing crystal cocoon via the power of a monarchical set of holy items that are possessed by a rhino bat lobster hybrid wizard named Ixis Nagus. This is Ixis Nagus. Anyways, she is my super hot girlfriend/wife, and her and I are the leaders of the Freedom Fighters of Knothole Village. Through trials, tribulation, the literal story of Sleeping Beauty, AI rebellions, and a love six-tangle, we always end up back with each other at the end of the day to oppose the tyranny of Dr. Robotnik. Now, I know what you're thinking. Seems like a lot of furry stuff. Don't worry. Here's something a bit less furry. Formerly known as Julian Kintober, he is an overlander and not cool. Overlanders are the slightly mutated, de-evolved descendants of humans on Mobius, created by some gene bombs, which we'll get to later. He's an evil dude. He ran away from the Overlanders because they were on to how horrible he was, and then teamed up with the Mobians and pledged allegiance to the king, but then he turned on them, and he became a dictator. He creates robots that try to kill me and my friends, and that is not cool. Luckily, they are too slow. However, his greatest crime is stealing the roboticizer from my Uncle Chuck. This is my Uncle Chuck. He's pretty cool, but also sort of a robot. This was meant to help victims of life-threatening conditions by turning them partially into robots, but he used it to enslave Mobians. Look what he did to Dad and Mom. Here's my dad, Jules, and here's my mom's entire free will being sacked away in comic book form. Well, actually, Dad was intentionally roboticized due to being shot point blank in the head in the Great War. He was super dead, but that is not cool. And so we saved his life by sapping away all of his free will. Don't worry, though, he got saved due to some sort of magic mumbo-jumbo. Anyways, this is Tails. He's my best friend. I've known him since we were kids. He can fly, and he's also some sort of Jesus figure in Mobian, Australia from this one time he decided to go out alone on his submarine, and he ended up helping a ragtag group of do-gooders who definitely are not Australian ripoffs of the Nahual freedom fighters. This is Rotor the Walrus. He is good with intentions and inventions, but not as good as Tails. And the next up is, how did that get there? Pretend you never saw this. Antoine Decoulette. He is French and I hate him. He is married to Bunny Rabbit. Bunny is cool and everyone likes her. Opposite of Antoine. This is Knuckles the Echidna. He is the guardian of Mobian, Australia. I mean Angel Island. Here's the thing though about Knuckles. I fucking hate Knuckles the Echidna. The less we have to talk about him, the better. So let's not talk about him unless I have to, okay? Cool. There are many I have excluded, like Mammoth Mogul, the most terrifying immortal wizard in all the land, who is also super rich. Shift E Wolf, a member of Sam Blast City and their freedom fighters. That's basically Las Vegas. Robbo the Hedge, leader of the Crazy Kidder freedom fighters out of Deerwood Forest and the Kingdom of Mercia, constantly battling Robotnik Subboss, the High Sheriff, or even Knuckles the Echidna, calling himself Dark Enerjack from an alternate future reality where he uses the dark power to become the incarnation of our timeline's Enerjack, a chaos demigod. So, if I sound to you like some sort of or even prolix autodidact politician, you'd probably be right. Given my emblematic status, I embody a political party platform formed around the Trinitarian formula of cool, far out, and drug companies should not be allowed to air commercials on national television. And if you weren't aware of this, please watch my Saturday morning cartoon. All of this is unified under our grand dharmic principle of keep your hands off of Mr. Hands and the Chaos Emeralds. While Dr. Robotnik paints a picture of a cult of personality specious Pol Pot allegory with minor villains each eschewing any future Rod Blagojevich illicit bribery crossover fanfictions, I, on the other hand, am more of a Jimi Hendrix mixed with a Negaverse/Bizarro World James Buchanan, an anti-robotic slavery crisis figure who serves as a childlike power fantasy with a literal Harriet Tubman but for furry storyline. This is, of course, putting aside the fact that the Mobian version of racial injustice applies to the one person of color in a mostly non-human society. However, interfauna wars of attrition do exist between tech-savvy yet 50s Americana-influenced guerrilla militias and isolationist, technophobic, inbred capitalist Aussie monotremes who have yet to understand how economic inequality exists. However, if you address that with a combination of entirely separate universes that serve as prison gulags with part and parcel magic mutinies, oppressed freedom fighters stealing gun munitions through implied bestiality amistad, and wodanistic ritual-worshipping monarchical partial democracies, it would not be entirely accurate to call it true capitalism. But what was the plot? It was multiverse theory. Yes, there is a Sonic multiverse, and that's really all you need to know going into this plot. Okay, so I am the only being who exists in some form in every universe of the multiverse. As such, I am the most important being in the multiverse. However, my polar opposite in necessity to the fabric of the universe is Robotnik, who exists in almost, but not every universe, as the polar opposite on the binary scale of good versus evil, whichever they fall into in that universe. Now, all the universes and multiverses are in fact monitored by a version of me called Zonic, who likes to fly upside down, and he tries to keep the Mii's in check, but this becomes an issue when Scourge the Hedgehog, formerly known as Anti-Sonic, a Mii from a different universe, gets some super duper power and travels the multiverse killing Mii's. Follow? Great. So at one point, Robotnik from the universe the comics follow develops a device to destroy our universe for some reason, and he and I fight. During this battle, I collect my 1 billionth ring, which protects me from getting destroyed when Robotnik actually wins. But by win, I mean his multiverse counterpart, Eggman, takes over and kills Robotnik, assuming his role in the universe. So you see, me from the primary universe wakes up in a new universe where people don't have the history of everything I've done because I've transcended the wipeout. In this new universe, Eggman is wanted and imprisoned all my friends. So you see, I have to team up with magical chimera wizard Ixis Nagas and Knuckles the Echidna, who is dating his cousin. But it's okay because DeviantArt assures us it's not incest. However, they are fourth cousins 12 times removed. I should also add that Knuckles does have a half-brother named Kneecaps. We eventually do stop Eggman, but not before learning that our entire existence is due to the original Robotnik's ancestor, Ivan Kintober, who pissed off a race of octopus aliens called the Zorda. So you see, now I, Eggman, and Shadow the Hedgehog had to team up to stop the Zorda, who were upset that their buddy caught up. Easy? Right, I know. But you see, Eggman used this chance to create something called the Genesis Wave, but then he teamed up with... How do these keep getting in here? He teamed up with Dr. Wily from Mega Man, who is now on an alternate planet Earth from a different timeline. They try to use the Genesis Wave to rewipe history, but fail because I team up with Mega Man. However, then they create a second Genesis Wave that uses all the Chaos Emeralds. For this one, I go super and become Supersonic and team up with Super Mega Man, and to no avail. The Super Genesis Wave destroys the entire planet. The Prime Universe is irreversibly rewritten, and the multiverse surrounding it collapses in on itself, destroying every prior known reality and creating new ones in its place. I and Eggman retain memories of this, but no one else does. We are cursed with no one believing us, and our planet is dying, crumbling, no longer hospitable. But then Ixis Nagas' sister appears and helps Eggman get the cacophonic conch. Anyways, the Super Genesis Wave seems to coincide with the main writer of the comics, Ken Penders, being fired for being bad at his job, suing Sega for rights to his Echidna characters, and also just being a creepy pervisoid, so they reboot the universe. And Ken Penders is not cool. Here is your last section. This is Ken Penders. Ken is a weirdo. He never played the Sonic games, which is a crime against God, which is also me. And he's never played a video game, which is a crime against God, who is also me. He just wanted to write characters and weirdly sexualize furries. He also gave us this, and this is a sin upon God, who again is me. He just wanted to write characters and weirdly sexualize furries. So he created a lot of original characters for the comics, and in his lawsuit, which he won, he got to keep the rights to all of them. But he couldn't use any of the licensed Sega properties, even though hedgehogs and echidnas are real mammals. So no longer do we have that. Now we have this. No longer echidna, they're now echidna. I'm sure you have many questions. Part of the answer here is that Ken Penders claimed most of these characters were ones he had created, and thus he owns the intellectual rights for them. And the whole Genesis Wave was a way to reset the universe so these characters could never exist, and Ken could keep his licensing. But don't worry, there's always more content out there, and I have spared you so many months of research. There are always ways to make fun of Ken Penders. I'd like to thank the inspiration for this, though, which is a Microsoft team conversation Michael had with his co-workers to explain the plot of my comic, the Sonic the Hedgehog comic. Any questions for Sonic?